We've got our concrete collar poured, we've got our backfill, our gravel over here on the side, we've got our plumbing lines trenched, and we've got all those lines run. We've got our lights cut. We are ready for the automatic pool cover. Now, that pool cover is delivered separately, so make sure to remember it's a separate shipment from your pool kit. It's also delivered LTL. You get 3 or 4 big boxes. Those boxes are laid out right here. We're gonna open those up, go through what's inside those boxes, and teach you how to install this automatic pool cover on your pool kit. It's gonna be a long day, but let's get started. All right, so our first box we're gonna dig into is our cover housing box, and there's a lot of great features in here that we're gonna talk about, but I love how everything's packaged. It comes really easy to pull out, so we'll go ahead and lay all this stuff out at the end of the pool and kind of talk about how this fits together. Now, we've got a real treat today. We've got some folks from CoverStar that are actually here that are gonna share some tips and tricks, hopefully, on how to get this cover installed correctly the first time. But we'll go ahead and open everything up and show you what that looks like. Now we've got our cover box all laid out, and I've got Jeff here with me. Now Jeff, how many pieces typically come in a box, and is there anything that you can tell us about this box that we need to know before we start trying to mount things?
Box length is based on the width of the pool. Usually what you'll want to do with an auto cover, and this is anybody's auto cover pretty much, is that you want to have an extra 3 foot on what we call the motor side. That's the side that the mechanism motor end is on, and about 1 foot on the non-motor side. So your box length is typically going to be about 4 foot longer than the width of the pool.
That's a great point, and you folks don't have to worry about ordering the right size box. We're going to get the right size box for you, but you do need to know that when you lay it out, it is definitely going to be longer than the pool, and there's a reason for that. So you've got an extension for your motor. It sticks out a little bit on both sides, so don't worry about that. We're going to show you how to cut that down to the actual length that you need and how to mount that box in just a minute. So I think we're gonna go ahead and start building up our housing holder. What do we call this?
Box braces.
Box braces.
So you'll get a pack with a bunch of these in them. These braces can mount to your pool wall. You can put these on when you're building your pool walls using these the bolts for your pool walls and go through these pre-made holes. I'm gonna also show what we're gonna do today is just self-tap them on since the pool walls have already been assembled. What I like to do before I put any of these on, so I make sure that they're all installed at the correct height, is I will take a tape measure and I'll mark 19 inches down from the top of the wall with a pencil or a Sharpie where I want this to be. So there's my mark, and I'll just continue along down the pool wall, marking where I'm gonna put these. On this size pool, I think I'm only gonna need to use about 4 of these. If you're doing a 24 foot wide pool, a really big one, I would use maybe 5 or 6 of these braces, but for an 18 foot wide pool like we're doing here today, 4 is plenty. The reason we're gonna mount the top of these braces down at 19 inches is so they sit just below our box. So when we're mounting it on the pool wall, these are gonna be underneath there helping hold these up. These are gonna serve 2 purposes, which you'll see once we've completed the box onto the pool. Like I said, we're gonna show how to do this with self-tappers today since you guys already got all the walls together and everything. Just so you know though, if people are asking if they've got their pool kit already and you've sent them this stuff and they're putting these walls together, they can put these on while they put their walls together.
I love that.
So it's kind of either or.
Is it better to do it before?
Some might say I like it because I can get it at so you're limited to where these are placed on so you gotta like flip them and play this game.
If you do it before you pour your collar, you can easy to set them.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a preference thing. I like putting them on afterwards with the self-tappers because I can just set them exactly where I want. I don't have to think about anything. I just fly right through it.
Love it. It's a great tip.
Yeah. So we're gonna have the top of our brace here, right where that pencil mark is.
In the edit, it's gonna look like one.
If you're inspired by this video, head over to poolwarehouse.com to get your free pool quote today.
All right, now, so we've got the top cap that goes in the deep end, and before we attach this, we're gonna show you how you peel off this lip that's on the back of that cap. We're using a Hydra panel, and it's a 5 1/8 inch panel, and this is meant for 5 inch, and it's easy to do if you have a bigger or taller top flange. You just peel this lip off the back, and that way it sits right on the top of your panel.
So this is piece 1 of our 2-piece wall cap. This is the bottom. We took that lip off the front to fit this specific pool wall. One thing you want to do, this piece is always going to come in a 20-foot length. I like to cut this piece a 1/4 inch shorter than the width of my pool walls. Reason being, we want about an 1/8 inch gap at the end of each piece here. So when we bring our encapsulation down, it has a lip that hangs about an 1/8 of an inch inside the pool.
Sure.
If we don't account for that, it'll be tight later. So always cut this piece about a 1/4 inch shorter than your pool wall width, interior width, so that it's gonna allow everything to fit on later when we get to those steps.
Love it, great tip.
When we were putting these braces on down here, we were using the zinc screws. As you can see, they're like a lighter, shinier finish. This is an example of our anodized finish screws. So they're gonna be used in different applications. The reason we use this zinc screw down there is it's gonna be buried, it's gonna be underground, under concrete. It's not gonna serve a purpose after the pool has been backfilled and the concrete's poured. So it's not as strong as a metal, whereas this anodized screw is always gonna be exposed to air, moisture, and it's gonna serve a structural purpose after the pool's construction is finished. That being said, anytime we're doing something where it's going to be part of the finished product, so that'd be on this bond wall or inside the polymer housing, part of the flush lid kit, everything we're going to be using in those situations is going to be anodized. It's that duller finish, less shiny than the zinc screws.
Perfect.
So just something to take note of. So the one thing to note here, there's 3 channels in this piece here. These 2 channels have a single line in them. This channel has got like a triple line in here. You just need to make sure your screws are in the single line channels on the lower piece. You'll see why later. We have another piece that will sit flush in here.
Perfect.
So again, I'm making sure that it looks like I have about an 1/8 of an inch between my inside pool wall and the beginning of this piece here. Again, every time before I put a screw in, I'm going to make sure this piece is pushed forward and against the wall. We don't want to have any of the top of the wall showing. So you guys can see we've still got a little bit of a gap here between the inside of our pool wall and then our actual wall cap piece here. Just the slightest amount. You'll see why we need that later. Motor right, your motor side is determined standing behind the cover housing, looking out at where your water's gonna be. So in this scenario, that'd be to my right. Over here, this is our 3-foot offset side. So we're gonna take our box, which does have a front and a back side. It's labeled on top here in the plastic pool side. You can also identify by seeing these rebar hooks that are only going to be on the back side away from the pool. So we're doing a 3-foot offset. We've got a 36-inch mark right here. I'm gonna hit it with a Sharpie just so it's a little easier to see. That's gonna be our 3-foot mark that's gonna line up with the inside of our pool wall, or where our track is gonna run for the auto cover.
Now, sometimes these may fit a little bit tight. It's okay to take a rubber mallet, pound them down in place. The idea is that you want this wall flush with the top of the box. When you set a level on this, when we're all done, it's going to be level all the way out to the box.
Perfect. Perfect.
Perfect. So there's our first piece. And like I said, this can be a one-man job from here. I'll just continue walking down, putting the next piece on one at a time.
Now, as Jeff mentioned, this housing already has some pre-molded in markings. I want to show you those. This is really great. Poolside, 12-inch, 24, 36. Poolside again. That is great for laying out this box. You'll definitely know which side is the pool side, and I love the fact that you have these 12-inch, 24-inch, and 36-inch markers. Definitely comes in handy, and I love that you can install it with one person. Is it easier with two? Yes, but one person can easily install and knock out the housing part of this this box. We'll keep going. Yep.
So once we've got our box laid out on the wall, before I do anything else, I like to just make sure I get all of our pieces put together. You'll find there's two spots for screws here on the top at each box splice, and then there's 3 in the bottom. For these, we want to use these pancake headed screws. Again, these are the anodized screws. These are going to be exposed to air, moisture forever, so that's why we need to make sure we're using the anodized ones that can stand up against that salt. So there's pre-drilled holes right where these go. Really simple. I like to put a second hand up underneath here, make sure I'm pulling everything together. These should be perfectly flush. These are all made to fit perfectly together. Just like that, we're good to go. You're not going into any metal here. This is all just into plastic. So you don't want to go crazy with the drill and just keep spinning out these screws. That's the one thing that some people don't understand is these are not going, while there is an aluminum channel in here, these splices are just plastic on plastic. So just be careful with that screw.
That's a great tip. You definitely don't want to bore these holes out. You can easily do that with plastic.
It won't be the end of the world, but it's just a little bit easier, and I feel better about it moving forward, knowing that they're not stripped out or could fail on me.
I love that. Great tip.
There we see how those sit. Part of the reason we're using these pancakes is they're nice and flush and flat down here. If for any reason our fabric or anything was to ever get down there, we're not worried about it tearing or ripping on a sharp head of a screw. These are flush. Perfect. And sometimes you'll see a crack, a crease in the bottom there, just picking up on the box. You know, just kind of move it around and you'll see that gap close up before you put those screws in. Little gap here and there is not going to kill you, but I like to close up what I can.
Installing this housing is actually pretty easy. The more I look at the design and the intuitiveness of the way they've pieced things together, really to install a cover, it's max of a 2-man job, at least on this size pool. Really the things slip together and go together nicely. Just the labeling, it's a really well-made product. So I love CoverStar for that. So she wrote here. Now what happens next?
Next, we're gonna chop this end off, put some braces in, put our ends in, and then level it up.
Now, is installing a cover for you typically a 1-day job or a 2-day job?
Well, you're asking a guy that's done more than I could ever count. If I came out here to do this full install by myself,
right?
Now I've done hundreds, I could do this whole thing in 3 hours.
Oh my gosh, okay.
But I'm flying.
Right, so for a regular homeowner, good with tools, good with their hands.
This is a full day job, yeah. This should be able to be done in an 8-hour day.
Okay, perfect.
If you're moving quick, 4 or 5.
Yep.
You know, if you're moving slow, it could be 10. So now that we've got all these pieces screwed together solid and where we know we need them, like we talked about, we have a 3-foot offset outside of the track space at that end of the pool. It's already set for our motor side. On our non-motor side, we're gonna have a 12-inch offset. That's 12 inches from the inside of this pool wall face right here, okay? So 12 inches this way, and then we're gonna cut our box off. So gonna take a measurement, make a mark with a Sharpie. Right here, that's where we're gonna cut our box off.
I feel like this is one of those measure twice, cut once situations.
Certainly, certainly. So I like to make sure that when I get my cut nice and square, so I'll pull from the end here, we're at about 27 and a half. Gonna make another mark over here, 27.5. Now what's really great about this cut is it's gonna be buried underground. No one's gonna ever see it, and we have a nice pretty cap that's gonna go in here to finish our end. Now, I'll use the ridges inside this box, part of what makes it so strong. I'll use these ridges as a guide, make sure I look like I'm following the same pattern on both sides of the box. And I'll just cut it with a Sawzall. You can use a wood or metal blade for this. It doesn't need to be as long as this one either. As long as it's at least 3 inches long, this blade's gonna work just fine. So we'll go ahead and cut this off real quick. As straight as we can. And there is an aluminum channel, mind you, in the top of this box. So both of the tops are gonna be aluminum. It's gonna take a little longer for that blade to go through, but once it gets through, it's just plastic all the way down. You'll see it goes, it's like cutting butter with a hot knife. So our 1 foot offset for non-motor end.
Now on the other end, we're good, right?
Yeah, that end we don't have to cut. We leave it exactly how it is.
Perfect. So
up next, we're gonna put our end caps in. Both of these end caps are the exact same, the universal, so it doesn't matter which end, which piece goes to. These end caps are going to drill in. They are gonna go flush with the end of our box here, okay? This is gonna flush up here, just like that.
Perfect.
We're gonna use 4 screws to put this in. Again, we're using those anodized screws. These are gonna be exposed to the air, moisture forever inside this box, so we're using the anodized screws. So on here, there's 4 tabs where these screws are gonna go. I like to use an extension because they're in a somewhat tough spot to get into.
Sure.
And again, we're going plastic into plastic here, so we'll just take our time, go slow, make sure we don't blow these holes out. Just like that.
Perfect. And I like how the end cap has that drain built in as well.
Yes. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Now on these sides, you go right in.
Right here.
Okay, where that indentation is.
Yeah, there's a little indentation in these extra flaps here. Kind of show you where those screws go.
And that's plastic on plastic again, so just make sure you're ginger with it and don't force it.
Take your time. If you need to, back the screw out and do it again. Little patience goes a long way on these. Again, I'm making sure I'm flush here. Close up our gap and get that screw nice and snug. That's our end cap there. So this end cap, a couple features of it while we're talking about it. There is a drain here. Always, every auto cover needs to have some sort of drain plumbed up to it. Now, in this backyard here, we've got a hill going down that way. So for me, the easiest thing I would think is when we install that end, before we finish backfilling, take a drain pipe or a tile, something to this hole and daylight it out down the hill. If you don't have a hill, if you guys have a deep sump, something you can tie this into, or maybe you've got drainage running around the pool off the gutter systems from the house, just something for somewhere for this water to go.
Sure.
If this trough fills up with water, it's not ideal. Everything in here can withstand the moisture in the water, but over time, there's electrical components in here. Anything like that, we just don't want that sitting underwater. So simply taking the extra time during install to make sure you plumb up a drain to one of these ends is gonna do you a lot of good in the long run.
Perfect, that's a great tip.
So these are our concrete and pouring braces, right? So these are gonna go in the housing during the first half, and when we come back, when the pool's full of water, concrete's poured, and we're ready to put the second half of the cover in, we're gonna pull these back out. So these are a temporary brace just to keep that box nice and square, so when we pour or backfill, it doesn't squeeze in.
Great idea. Now we've got some other stuff down in the box too. We've got some end caps. I guess that's for our drain.
Yeah, that's great. So these will fit down on that drain hole. Now, like we talked about, you always want to have at least one side draining. You can poke out a bottom of the hole and you can plug your sides. But in this scenario, since we already talked about draining this way downhill, daylighting out, we'll probably want to put this drain on that end to keep any backfill, dirt, sand, whatever you're using at your pool from flowing into that box and making a mess.
Love that. Now we've got a couple other things in here, and I'm sure we'll get to those, but we've got some components here that look like those are electrical related.
Yeah, so your molded housing is going to come with a single gang junction box and a face plate that's going to wire up to our motor later. These are ultimately going to mount in this convenient little cutout here in the molded housing down at our motor end, because that's where the electrical needs to be, is at the motor end.
Great spots. And you've got some stickers in this box.
Lastly here, we've got some stickers. These are great. You know, just a good indicator. I'll show you exactly where these are going to mount, okay? So these lines show you above in the red is where you're going to have concrete, down below in the white's roughly where you're going to need to have stone, your backfill or sand, whatever you're using. I like to stick these about 1/4 to 1/2 inch below our aluminum channel here. That means this part of the box is ultimately going to be wrapped in, or excuse me, surrounded in concrete with our rebar channel in here, and everything below that is okay to backfill with gravel. So this whole thing does not need to be encased in concrete, just the upper lip to hold it in place and secure it.
Love that.
We'll take the rest of these and put them along the back of the box as we work. All right, so when you guys are opening everything up, you're gonna find these brackets wrapped up. We call these our Z brackets, a little bit based on the shape there. These brackets can be used to mount a box on the wall with a different style plate. You may have seen these used on other brands or older systems, but we've got our wall cap mounting system now that allows you to not use these. So don't worry when you get these. This is basically included in every kit, and because when these kits are assembled, we don't know exactly what pieces are going to go in with what. So if you're using our molded wall cap, you do not need to use these. Otherwise, these will mount to the box. Screws going through this way into the front of the molded housing, and these 2 screw plates here, or excuse me, these holes will set up on top of the wall, and you can screw down into the wall to secure your box to the wall that way. But we're going to be doing the molded wall cap here, which I think is a much slicker and cleaner looking finish. Alrighty, so up next, we're going to put our box braces in. These are the box braces. They look similar on both ways, but there is a unique difference here. This end is a clean 90-degree angle. This end, we see there's a lip in the 90-degree. This is important. This side is going to go back away from the pool, okay? The side that's got the clean lip is going to face up and be pointed towards the pool. Now, you'll get more braces in the package than you need, and you're welcome to install them if you feel like it. But we're just going to install a handful of these at all of our box splices, meaning places where the 2 boxes come together, okay? Now, how these are going to go is they sit right on top of these nice ridges we have here in the box, just like this, okay? Once that box is closed up, it's sitting here on this ridge, and it can't go down. So we've got screw holes in the front, screw holes in the back. There's 3 at each. I find 2 screws in each side is more than enough. So that's what we're going to do here.
Guys, I'll highlight that. These are temporary. They go in during the construction process to protect the box from being crushed during backfill. A lot of times, even for you contractors out there, you don't have a lot of control over subcontractors. And you may have an excavator or a concrete guy that's a sub that doesn't understand that these boxes can be crushed out of square. So we do everything we can to provide temporary support. We're even going to show you down the road here, once we get the lid on, that we want you to install the lid and have that set in place. We'll flip it upside down so it keeps from getting any concrete on it or anything, but we want the lid in place before any backfill is done or any concrete is poured to hold everything square and plumb.
Perfect.
Again, we are drilling into just plastic here, so no need to go crazy with the drill. I find it's best to lean on the box to hold it closed when doing our screws in the back side. So there you go. This one's installed. As you can see, it's not pushing down. It's holding our box to the perfect shape. Now, do you want to go ahead and try a couple of these? Yeah. The reason this piece goes in the back that points down is that if we had this in the back pointing up, this would interfere with the riser panel and our flush lid that we're going to install later. So if you don't catch this mistake now, you will catch it later when you go to put the lid on. So that's why we want to get these right the first time. This little lip here sitting on the back.
And the reason he said that is I about put it in backwards. So.
Well, you didn't have to tell him that.
If you're inspired by this video, head over to poolwarehouse.com to get your free pool quote today.
We're gonna level our box using these stakes, attaching them to the brackets down below. Now, we're gonna attach to the box first before we pull it up to level. I do wanna take note here, the top of this brace has got a 90-degree turn facing this way, so we're gonna need to attach our brace on this side, okay? So we're gonna have a flush surface to mount into here and a flush side facing that box so that we've got something to work with here, okay? So first things first, I'm gonna get this where these are all lined up with each other. Take a self-tapper, go right through the top here. Now this is going into our aluminum channel there. So that was a very strong bite that we got there. Now,
is that
up
flush
next
with the top?
Yes, flush with the top, roughly.
Okay.
If this is a 1/4 inch high, 1/4 inch low, it is not gonna affect anything.
Okay.
I just like to go flush as a rule of thumb for myself.
Sure.
Now, this, again, can be done as a one-man operation, but this is one of those steps that is always just gonna be easier with a second person. Now, we're gonna lay a level across the box. What's really important here that I see a lot of people make the mistake of is they get a really long level and they'll lay it all the way across from their wall cap to the back of the box. This is not gonna give us an accurate measurement and our box is gonna be leaning down towards the pool.
Sure.
We need to make sure we're using a short enough level that the level is only sitting on the white polymer on that side, okay? It's okay if it overhangs here, but we do not want that level sitting up there because it is gonna sit higher and give us a false sense of level. You'll even see if we pull this up to level, there's now a gap under here, okay?
Wow.
So that's why it's important that we get that level on there. I've seen that mistake made a few times, so I wanted to mention it. Now, you get to be the one that holds it up to level.
You tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll get a screw here. So down on our plate, we've got the big holes that are pre-made for mounting on the pool side. You'll also notice there's some small holes. I like to utilize these small pre-drilled holes. That way I'm only self-tapping through one piece of steel as opposed to two. It's more difficult to go through two, and my partner here has to hold this box up just that much longer. So whatever's quickest and easiest, I'm always a fan of. So let's go ahead and get that up to level. Holler at me when you've got it level and you're happy with it.
Well, looks good right there.
Quick and easy.
Woohoo, perfect.
And that's gonna stay just like that. Now we'll come back and we can add some more screws to actually help stabilize this a little more. But for right now, I just wanna move along and get all 4 of these braces staked up in place.
Now we're gonna do one at every single junction that we added one of those supports.
Yes.
Okay.
So now that we've got this box completed, we've got all of our braces, we're up level. You can see this box is very secure. I can push on it and everything, and it's not going anywhere. Very strong once it's all assembled. So this thing shouldn't be moving on you. Whether you're backfilling or pouring concrete anywhere around here, you should be good now. All right, so like we talked about, we're gonna be blocking this side off from the drain. So take our drain cover here, excuse me, put it in place, and we're going to be using those anodized screws again because these are going to be exposed to the elements permanently. So we want to make sure we've got a screw that's going to hold up over time. Get that side started. Snug it up. And that's going to help keep any debris, sand, dirt, mud, whatever from washing into the box.
Okay, guys, we talked earlier about our aluminum extrusions and how most all the extrusion pieces we made serve multiple purposes. This is our encapsulation that goes down the side walls of the pool. This particular encapsulation profile is called our one-piece rounded. And we've got several different profiles. This is one particular one that we call our rounded profile. Multiple purposes of this. It finishes off the top of the wall. You've also got a liner track incorporated into it. Again, we got to hang the liner in this pool when we're all done doing this. It also serves as your encapsulation that houses your rope track. Your rope track goes back in here to make this an under track cover because everything hangs below deck level. Concrete is going to be poured up to here, so this serves as a concrete dam so it doesn't spill over in the pool as well. Got a nice finished look on the outside of it that matches all the other finished product once you're done. And we've got a channel back here where the concrete pours over into this channel, serves as a grab. Hold the wall back.
On this pool, there's going to be 3 pieces. You're always going to have at least these 2. This is going to be your corner pocket made of plastic, and then this is going to be your coping piece. Now on this pool, we also are going to have a 6-inch radius corner. So this is going to be your drop-in piece. If you're doing a 90-degree corner, you will not be getting this, but these also come in a 2-foot radius and a chop corner, 3-inch chop.
And that's the only piece that you actually will see when you're looking down in your corner. So, but you'll actually see this piece of material, but then that's it.
Yeah, this black plastic piece you won't see.
Again, you have to have this piece though, Jones, because that's what the liner hangs in. We've got to support the liner all the way around the pool.
Sure, I love that. So that's actually part of the track.
Yeah, you'll see how it'll go in there.
Perfect.
So to put this together, I like to slide my coping corner piece on first. It slides into this channel and hooks over the top, okay? It runs in these grooves. So go ahead and slide this on, just like that. Just slides into place. Okay, next we're going to take our black plastic piece. This section here is what I like to look at to line up. Is going to go right in here, just like that. That's our corner pocket. I'm going to bring this down, slide our next piece over. Simple assembly, just like the other.
Wow, that's great.
Okay, and then finally on the inside here, we're going to take our 6-inch round radius and we're going to just pop it right in. Okay, it's going to line up in the liner channel. I just take my hand, snaps right into place. That's it. Your corner is fully assembled, ready to go.
That is too easy.
We are going to go ahead and slide this piece back out just because, like I said, this was just helping us get our spacing right. This is where we know everything's going to ultimately end up as far as this piece of encapsulation is concerned. Now, we have 2 things that we could do here. If a corner piece like this is made of plastic, I'll simply bend it forward and put the lip of the encapsulation behind there. However, on this stiffer metal, I'm going to mark it and we're going to roll off that lip just like we did earlier.
So if you notice, we just notched out our corner of the coping or encapsulation profile, and that's that bottom lip. Our corner, our 6-inch angle here is actually made out of steel, so you can't move or fold that. All you simply need to do is take a quick measurement and notch out that gap right there, and it'll fit right over the top.
So now when we put this all back together, give us a...
Oh, I see what you were saying earlier.
Nice clean finish. Okay. And then there, we drop that in just like that. We are going to put a different piece of encapsulation on this wall here, a shorter piece. once we're done doing the rest of the pool. But we did use this as a placeholder, so I'm gonna go ahead and start to fasten this down. I like to put my first screw through the black plastic piece, right down into this channel, holds it in place. And then we just continue every 18 inches or so, just eyeball it. You'll see the whole way as I go down this pool, my left hand is always gonna stay right here. I'm feeling this inside edge to make sure it's still flush with my pool wall. If we attach this encapsulation and it's 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch hanging out over the pool wall, your liner's not gonna wanna sit right, and then you're gonna end up in here with foam padding trying to get that liner to sit right
Well, I
with the
imagine
wall.
your cover wouldn't even be able to travel down easily as well.
It could cause your cover to not be as straight, but our covers have inserts and things that allow them to flex with it. Say you
perfect.
have a wall that's not straight, our cover can still run on that just fine.
Love that.
But as always, the more straight and square everything is, the easier things are gonna be later. So,
Absolutely. So just make sure it's flush
Yeah.
when you're pinning that down against the wall.
exactly. When we go to make our splice here, we've got 3 different pieces we need to worry about. We've got our coping clip, our long splice, and our roll pin here, okay? These all serve a purpose and are important that we get these installed. Now, first things first, this clip slides on like our corner clip does. So this needs to be put on before we join these pieces of encapsulation together so that we can slide it on. If we've put both on, you can't add it on here. You'd have to slide it all the way on from one end. So I like to get that on first.
I'd like to point out that that's an exclusive CoverStar feature. In the old days, like the gentleman over here pointed out, coping clips simply snapped onto the coping,
Sure, that's all I've ever seen.
but they snap back off again.
Right.
Very easily.
Sure.
Freeze and thaw, temperature variations, concrete pushing on it
Sure.
as the concrete expands. I've never seen them to where you don't have an issue sometime down the line
Sure.
with the coping clip popping off.
Absolutely.
And it's a customer complaint.
And this is a great
These
design.
don't pop off.
Yeah.
These don't pop off.
Those cannot pop off. So, next thing here that I like to get installed is our roll pin. This is a very small detail. We'll see that it goes in this back channel right here. What that does is it just makes sure it keeps our encapsulation nice and lined up as we're installing everything and pouring concrete. So just lightly tap with a hammer till it's about halfway in. Next thing up is our long splice. Now I like to take the end that's split, divide it just like this, okay? Now, it's gonna make it trickier to put it in, but what it's gonna allow that to do is it's not gonna slide in or out, move around when we're trying to put everything together, or during concrete, if they're vibrating, pouring, this thing's not moving around. It's always gonna stay in place and do its purpose if we've bent one end just like this. So I'll take that bent end, and I can feel some resistance as I'm pushing this in, get it about halfway in. There we go. Now, this is another step where it's great to have another helper. I'm gonna send Jeff down to the other end with this hammer to tap. Now, the key thing when you have your helper tapping on this encapsulation at the other end is you do not wanna be hitting the hammer here, on your coping, or anywhere on this front half of the encapsulation. You wanna be tapping this back corner like this, okay? This, if you damage, ding up this back piece, it is okay. It's not gonna affect any performance of anything. If you ding up your front side, your coping, or where your track's gonna go, it could give you trouble later. So I just wanna make sure you tell your helper that before they go down to hit the other piece. Now I'm gonna line this up. We'll see this piece slides in no problem. The only reason we need to tap this is to get that roll pin in. Okay, go ahead and now we've got a nice clean finish here. Our encapsulation's completely together. This gap is sealed up. Now we're ready to slide our coping clip right back over and cover that up.
Beautiful. And it looks so clean too.
Yep. Now that we've fastened our next piece down, we're ready to do our last piece of encapsulation here that's gonna go into the box. Now it's really important at this step that we get this measurement right. From here, from the end of this piece of encapsulation to the inside of our box is about 51 inches. Now, I like to run this encapsulation long into the box, at least 1 inch. So here we're gonna give ourselves about an extra inch, which is gonna end up being 52 1/8. So I'm gonna cut my next piece of encapsulation to 52 1/8 inches so that it hangs 1 inch over onto the inside of our molded housing. So this is going to be our last piece of encapsulation that we're going to put on the this side of the pool. We're going to do another splice here, just like we did before, and then this is going to come down and hang that 1 inch to the box like we had talked about, just like that. Now the reason we're going to leave this 1 inch into the box is so that when we're installing our tracks on the second half, we can run what we call a retainer screw through this encapsulation to hold those tracks in place. The reason the encapsulation is so great for that is this is locked into concrete into place. It's not going to allow those tracks to move. So that's why we like to leave that long. Now, before we do our splice and fasten this piece down, we do need to take note here that we run over a wall here. So we're going to have to mark again with a knife and roll that edge off. So I'm going to make sure I'm pressed up here. We're touching, and just make a nice mark with my knife, a score, and we'll come through with our pliers and roll this edge off again up to our mark. We left that 1/8 inch gap. We cut this piece a little short. That's because this is going to hang over our pool wall just like that, and you see that's going to be a nice snug fit in there when we're done. That's why we leave that a little bit short. Lastly, we've got our drop-in 6-inch radius corner again. Here, it's just going to come right into this corner. Pop it into place with your hand. There we go.
Love it.
It's locked in. Once we get that liner on there, it's not going anywhere. Something I like to do once the box is square, straight, and level is I'll use these extra stakes and I'll use self-tappers and fasten this stake right here to act as a bit of a brace. We don't have much to go into, just a little bit of meat on each side here. But what this is doing is when we're backfilling here, if whoever's backfilling were to say dump a big bucket of gravel with the skid steer right back here, it's preventing this whole side from bowing forward, okay? It's just one more little brace for security.
And I love this. I have not seen this done before. Like, it's a great idea to use your extra brace for that.
Exactly. We've already got these braces here, might as well use them for something. That one's mostly in the plastic, but it's gonna keep this box. I can't pull it forward now. Before, if I were to take that out, I could bow this end of the box forward. So this is keeping this solid.
I know we mentioned tips and tricks earlier. This is definitely one of those tips or one of those tricks you definitely want to try out.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
This cannot hurt you. It can only help you. So there you go.
Looks
just
great.
A little added stability.
Love it.
Never gonna hurt anything. So how this piece sets in here is really a clean, snug fit. We've got a lot of metal shavings, dirt, debris from putting the existing screws in and just because we're on a job site. So it's really good if you can take a leaf blower or a hand broom, clean out this whole channel really thoroughly before we move on, especially the front channel closest to you, so the one you can't see up under here.
Oh, I see.
That's by far the most important channel.
It's that whole lip.
Yeah.
It slides up underneath it.
If you don't do this, you will be fighting this piece and wondering why it's not going down very easily. So.
Again, that's another pro tip.
Yep.
All right.
That's it.
That's it.
That went in so easy because we had cleaned it off. If we didn't clean it off, this whole thing would be bending and not going in.
So cleaning it off really is worth the time, and that little lip just slips right into that groove that we cleaned out, basically.
Yeah.
Nice finished look.
Now this piece, so we've got our straight edge towards the water, our edge with the lip towards the back. We're gonna set the back in first, and this piece will just set down in here really smoothly.
Now you cut these to length, correct?
Yeah, so that they're both gonna fit in here and fill this.
Out of the box, how long are they?
10-foot pieces, I believe.
Yeah.
So if you've got a 20-foot pool, chances are you may not need to trim them. Sometimes you still need to trim a little 1/2 inch off of one of these. I don't concern myself too much with making sure the splice of these is like dead center. Once this auto cover is installed, the leading edge bar is gonna rest on top of here. You'll never probably see this piece again.
Sure, and all this piece does is just cover up those pancake screw heads that you see down the line, and just get it going in with the lip the correct direction, and it really slips in easily.
There are some times you'll find this is a little snugger and you may need to use a rubber mallet to hit it in. However, these ones are setting in nicely without it, so I'm not gonna need that rubber mallet.
And it gives a really clean finished look to this as well.
And here's our
Like a glove.
last piece.
Looks great.
All right, so the next step for our flush lid with this going on this polymer housing is to install our riser panel. This is gonna act as our concrete form. We're also gonna mount our system into it, and it holds our lid. So this piece is gonna function as a this piece is going to serve quite a few functions. Now, you'll get a 4-foot long piece like this. That's gonna be for your rear. Then you get this 4-foot piece. This is for the front of your box. This is your front riser is what I call it. So this is gonna have to be cut, fill this section of the front of the box on the motor side of the pool, as well as the non-motor side of the pool. So the easiest way for this is to just drop it in and draw a line on it on each side for what length I need to cut it to. Now, it's important that you know which side is which on this. I like to have a factory cut here closest to the box, closest to the encapsulation. So if you look at this piece, we've got a shelf, a clean, smooth shelf on this side. That's gonna be facing inside to the inside of the box like this, okay? On the outside, we've got more rigid pieces here. This is designed so the concrete can grab it. These are gonna point away from that housing towards the concrete. So ultimately this piece is gonna slip right down here between the end piece of our molded housing, but all the way up against the encapsulation. That's where it is gonna set when it is finished being installed. Now, I like to just hold this here, level, and I will mark a line here with my Sharpie. That's where I know I need to cut this piece. Before I cut it, I'm gonna take it all the way to the other side of the pool and replicate the exact same thing on this same piece, and we'll make another line here so we get both our cuts done at once. So we're gonna take our piece, put it in the other end here, get pretty close to level. I'm gonna take my Sharpie and mark another line here. So this piece here in the middle, it's gonna be our scrap. This is our non-motor end, that's our motor end. All right, up next, you're gonna wanna use the anodized hex heads. Here, again, we're using anodized. These are gonna be exposed to the air and moisture. So if you look on the inside here, on the bottom of this riser, there is a little indentation. I like to use that indentation. I'm gonna go through aluminum of the layer of plastic and then the aluminum channel on the other side. So these are gonna be nice and strong, held in place. Just like that. Just like that. So this is our non-motor end riser panel. Again, the piece with the smooth lip on top here is gonna face into the box. I've got our 2 clips on. Now I am gonna space these out once I've placed it, but I'm gonna put them close together because we've already got our little brace on here. This will make it a little easier. We've got our coping transition piece in place. So we'll go ahead and set this down, line up our channels there. Slide that piece right into place, and then I'm gonna spread my my box height clips here out, and then we'll go ahead and put 2 screws in it just like we did on the other end. There we go. That piece is secure and in place. Now, we're ready to measure and cut our rear riser panel. So Now that our fronts are in, we'll take a full measurement from this end of the riser to the end of the riser on the other end, and then we'll cut our back to the same. We can't have this square if the front and back are different lengths. So starting with always thinking about making things as square and straight as possible, we're just gonna make our back the same as the front, and then that makes squaring things up a lot simpler. All right, we've got our rear riser panel cut here. We've laid it down in the box just to give us a little easy work surface here. We've got another pack of these clips. They come in little wraps of 5. I think 5 is plenty for this rear riser panel. You're welcome to use more if you want. We're gonna slide these on, and they'll slide down. We're just gonna space them evenly, and I do leave the 2 at the ends right at the end, just like that, okay? So again, we'll just kind of eyeball. Now I can also clip these on. I don't have to slide them. You can if you prefer. Pop it up into place. Again, I'm just eyeballing. Pop that up into place. And this end one we can just slide in. And we're gonna leave it right there at the end. Now this is nice to have a second person. So we're gonna lift this up. It should be further down your way. Are you at the end? There we go.
If you're inspired by this video, head over to poolwarehouse.com to get your free pool quote today.
On our end here, this is our end piece that's gonna complete our riser panel for the flush lid. Again, we're gonna use these anodized hex heads here. Get them through our piece here. They go into these 2 half moon looking circles here. I do not tighten them all the way up till I've got everything ready to go. So I just get it just started, just a little. Once all those are done, snug them up. You don't want to over tighten these. You can pop the heads off. Just snug. You can also put 2 more screws down in here. Just like that. Cool. We'll repeat the same process on the other side. When we measure our lid, we're gonna measure the inside dimensions of this here, and we're gonna subtract a 1/2 inch from whatever we get. The reason we're gonna subtract a 1/2 inch is because we're gonna be putting these plastic caps on each end, and the width of this plastic here is gonna be filling up on the ends of our lids an additional 1/4 inch. Now you might say, okay, well, if we're subtracting a 1/2 inch and both of these plastic pieces equal a 1/4 inch, won't that leave an extra 1/4 inch? Won't that leave an extra 1/4 inch of space? Yes. The reason for that is that these lids, when they get out in the sun, they get super hot, they do expand just the slightest bit. And if you cut these lids so that they fit in here snug in the concrete, when they expand, we have seen them pop out of this riser panel. So I like to give them that extra 1/4 inch of space to grow. You'll never see that 1/4 inch. It'll be covered by this trim piece. You'll never know it's a 1/4 inch short, but it gives it that space to grow and not bubble, warp, pop out, whatever. So David, we're at 22 feet and a 1/2 inch. So you just cut the lid at 22 feet exactly. All right, up next, we're gonna trim this piece of encapsulation, the coping of the encapsulation where it comes into the box. We're not gonna cut off the bottom of our encapsulation down here. That's gonna be used to retain our track with a screw later. We're just taking off this top portion here. I find it easiest to just use a sawzall, make a cut along the bottom, and then cut our top piece off. So we'll do that now. There we go. Not the best angle at, but the idea is that that's off now, so our lid can sit in here and come down flush with everything else. Once you've finished assembling your riser panel, you'll want to move on to your quick attach kit. This is the quick attach kit here. You've got 4 pieces. They're all one-of-a-kind pieces that go in a specific location. So we're going to talk about that. You've got your larger pieces here. These are your motor side pieces. These are your smaller pieces here. These are your non-motor end pieces, okay? Now, on both of these 2 sets here, the larger of the 2 pieces are going to go at the back of the box away from the water, and the smaller 2 pieces here are going to go on the front of the box towards the water. Now, to assemble these, they each come with a different plate with 2 studs on it. They'll assemble like this. The studs will go through those holes and be pointed up the same way as these are going to be installed. So all the studs pointing the same way. Take a 7/16 nut. I just get it 1, maybe 1.5 turn on there. I don't even tighten it up to the nylon inside these nuts. I just get it threaded on just barely, and I'll show you why. We'll tighten them up more later. But again, those studs are facing up. Just barely getting these nuts on, just a turn. Studs up. Just barely got our 7/16 nuts on. Repeat that again. So we're going to start with our largest piece here. This is, again, these are our motor side, and the larger of the 2 is going to go on the back of the box away from the water. So that's going to be this piece first. We're going to bring it in here to our box, and we're going to go in this top channel. It's easiest to go in an angle like this, pop it up, and it drops down. Once it's in place, I'm going to finish tightening these by hand just till I get to that nylon in the lock nut. It's not going to be tight. It's just going to be snug enough. This can slide around, but it's not going to fall out. Okay. Next, we're going to grab the motor end piece for the front. Pop it in place. Tighten up our nuts to the nylon. Again, they don't need to be tightened down. I'm not using any tools on this. Still slides around. Okay. Now I'm going to take my other 2 pieces, go to the other end. So these 2 we've made, again, the larger of the 2 is going to go on our back wall away from the water. Slide it up in there. Finger tighten these nuts down. Finally, we've got our other side here, our smallest one. This is going on our water side of the pool. Tighten it in place so it can't come out very easily, but it's still able to slide around. Okay, able to move. Now lastly, what we're going to do on both sides here is we've got these trays. These trays are going to set in here on those studs at the bottom. Okay, I like to put 1 nut finger tight on this side and go to the opposite corner, put this nut on, just finger tight. I'm not breaking out any tools. I'm not tightening anything up. These are going to come back out. This plate's going to come back out. We're going to put another down there. This again is just acting as a brace to hold everything for the concrete so that this box can't cave in, worst case scenario. So that's the point of that. And again, we're going to drop our plate in here. You may have to shift this around to get these lined up, but essentially if they're across from each other, that plate should go down just fine. Install a nut over here. There are extra bolts and nuts that came with this kit. These are important and we will need them on the second half. I like to take my spare nuts that came with the quick attach kit, put them in a small box, close it up, and leave it right in here for our second half, so that when we come back and we're ready to mount our system, our hardware is still in here. We know exactly where it is. So don't throw those away. You will be using them.
Guys, what you're looking at here is what we call the first half. the first half, the first phase, the pre-ship. There's all kinds of different terms for it. All of them are correct. But at the end of the day, this is the piece of the system, the half of the system that goes on before you pour concrete. Everything's got to be, all this has got to be on the pool before the concrete is poured and the deck is finished. The second half can't be installed until the concrete is poured and there's water in the pool. So that's why 2 halves.
Thank you.
This is also a great time to point out, if you're going to be doing your own electrical or whatever, I like to get the electrical stub through the end of our molded housing cap here and do this now. Since we don't have our conduit or anything ran, I am just going to leave this down in the bottom of the box. But as we talked about earlier, this does fit up inside that molded housing end cap, just like that. So you'll want to stub that electrical right through the center of that cap. The box that you get your end cap with is also going to have your 90-degree brackets with your hardware to attach these. These are number 2 Phillips with 3/8 nuts. I'll show you how we attach those right now. So the side of our 90-degree bracket that's got the 2 pre-made holes in is where we're going to put our screws. Okay. We're going to take those screws. They line up with these holes right here. Okay. Get our 3/8 nuts started on those, and I'll come behind, tighten it up again. Number 2 Phillips with a 3/8. Just snug. And that's going to help support that lid. All right, so up next, we're going to need to figure out where we want to place our lid brackets so we can get our bolts behind those. Those are going to be concrete anchors that go behind where we put our lid brackets in to make them extra strong. So something I see a lot of people do is they say, okay, I got 4 lid brackets, I'm going to space them evenly, and they put the first one right here. Okay, if you put a lid bracket right here, it is not going to serve almost any purpose at all. Okay, the idea of the lid bracket is to support the front of the lid that's not sitting on this channel that's going to be locked in concrete. Okay, however, the front of the lid on the ends is going to be sitting on this, which is supported and locked in concrete. So the front of the lid is supported there. So any weight on this bracket, it's going to be very minimal, and it's going to be kind of a waste of putting this bracket here. So when you place these 4 brackets and mount the bolts for them, you need to make sure that these brackets are spaced evenly between the track space and not evenly on this back panel. Okay, so you got to focus on that track space on the front of the box to figure out where you're going to place these. So we've got 4. So I'm going to say the first one's going to go right about here. Before I place it, I'm going to drill and put in my anchor. For our first bracket that we're going to put in right here, we're going to use a 1/4 inch bit, drill into the center, and I mean center by top to bottom of this channel here. Okay, there's our hole. Now, the hardware that goes with this is important that it goes on in the right order. You'll receive 4 of these bolts, 8 nuts, and 4 washers. You need to first start off by putting 1 nut all the way down to the end of the threads like that. We're going to poke this through like this. Then we're going to put a washer followed by another nut on the inside. It's key that this washer goes on the inside, not the outside, or it won't be serving any purpose. Okay, now I like to get this as tight as I can by hand, and then I will spin the back around nice and snug until it's pointed down again like that. Okay. Now, wherever we place these is where we're going to have a lid bracket. So that lid bracket's going to go on. It just hooks up into our top channel, folds down just like that. Now, I want to talk about why these 90-degree bolts are so important. As you see, I can just use the weight of my finger here to push down on this bracket, all right? It is not hard to push down on this. Now imagine a 200-pound person jumping on the edge of this lid. Now, we don't recommend jumping or walking on the lids necessarily, but people step on them, Kids don't listen to directions all the time, so people may step on this, so we need this to be strong. If there's not a bolt back here locked in concrete and someone steps on this, it can pull this over time. It can damage and pull this riser away from your concrete, okay? We don't want that, so having these 90-degree bolts in here acts as an anchor, so when someone's putting any sort of weight on here, this is locked in concrete saying, no, you're not bending, you're not moving. So these are really easy to miss, but very important. Do we have a 1 foot level? I think there's one in my bag. I'll show you on this one, this bracket that's not installed. We've got a bolt underneath here. When you turn that bolt up, that's what's gonna adjust the level of our bracket, okay? So right now, I like to throw a little 1 foot level on here. Our bracket is showing that it's below level. Now what I like to do is I don't bring these up to level. I actually go a little bit above level. As we saw, it doesn't take much force to bend this down. When we set our lid in there, our lid's got a little bit of weight to it. It's gonna bring them down a little. So I just go a little above level. So when I set my lid in there, it sits down to level. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm gonna, watching my riser panel there, I make sure I'm not leaning on this because that's gonna affect what is and isn't level. We're gonna bring this up just like that. Now, and that's it. That's how we level that bracket. Cool? All right, we are wrapping up the end of our install here. We've got our flush lid riser finished. Everything's ready to go. We've got our spare parts inside, our junction boxes in there so we can get that electrical wired up. We've got our flush lid caps. Now I recommend, some people will put these on and set the lid in there the way it's supposed to go and pour concrete. It is really hard to keep that concrete off the lid and keep the lid looking nice. So what I like to do is leave these trim pieces down in the box. We'll be using those when we come back after concrete, and then I like to set the lid in here upside down. That way, if that your concrete gets splashed on the lid or anything like that, it's on the underside, you're never gonna see it. It's not gonna be any sort of mess you have to worry about cleaning up. It keeps that nice top side of the lid you're gonna see when it's finished looking good. So we're gonna set that lid in there upside down, and then it's ready for backfill and pour.
Well, you guys have been great. I think we've learned a lot about how to install a cover from start to finish. Definitely if you're using a CoverStar cover, this is how you want to do it. All the little features, all the little tips, all the little tricks are great. You may need to watch this several times to get it really to sink in, but definitely the most thorough and all-inclusive video I've seen so far, at least the content that you've already created. So thank you for that. We appreciate the guys from CoverStar coming out and showing us how to properly install an automatic pool cover.
Yeah, we'll see you at the second half.
That's it. All right, let's get this lid on. Stay tuned. In episode 3, we're going to show you how to finish plumbing your pool, how to finish all of your backfill, and finally pour that concrete deck around your entire pool. We're also going to do the pool bottom and show you how that works, and drop the liner, and also cut out those skimmers and all those returns from the liner. Stay tuned, guys. We've got a lot of great tips and tricks coming at you in episode 3.